Good evening. If you do have a mobile, if you'd like to put it on sound, please, thank you. Now I've got your attention. Happy birthday, Wayne. Yo, Buddha, 60. couldn't resist. Right, massive welcome to tonight's new speaker at St Anne's, John-Paul Mahon, who presents The World is Not As It Seems. Might be flat. At first glance, the flat earth theory seems laughable, quaint and probably wrong. However, there are questions that haven't been adequately answered, sufficient to put the subject to bed. NASA, whose hardware apparently orbits the Earth and ventures into space, absorbs enormous funds and produces nice CGI, sold as real. Is this lawful? Numerous geographical anomalies remain just that. So does stuff revolve around us? Are we the centre of attention? Are we really important? Or just a Darwinian accident on a nondescript planet revolving around an average sun in one of a million galaxies? And anyway, why the sudden interest? So if you please leave any questions till the end, write them down maybe. Please welcome John-Paul Mahon.
Hello, I'm John-Paul. I'm a pastor from over on the Wirral. The church that I'm a pastor at isn't your average church. We follow all of the Bible. We don't follow the teachings of kind of mainstream Christianity, which does away with a large part of the Bible or uses it for nice stories. So that's my perspective, that's where I'm coming at, just to give you the heads up at the beginning. So the subject tonight is this: our stationary flat Earth. Okay, is the Earth flat? Well, there's been a number of experiments that have been done that show that it is. There's a difference in science between something that is proven by experiment and something that is theoretical. A theory might explain a set of phenomena quite well, okay, but the thing with theories is they've always changed throughout history. We've never really settled on a theory that fits everything, okay? Theories have always changed. They explain the phenomena, then we come up with a new theory. What is hard evidence is what we get from experiments. Now we're told that we live on a giant ball, essentially. If we do live on a giant ball, then what we will be able to measure is the curvature of the ball. So the first thing that I want to look at is this, the physical proof that we're not on a ball. Because as I say, experiments have been done. So have a look at the experiments and see what you think. The curvature of the Earth, we're told, works like this. Over the first mile, okay, there's curvature of 8 inches, then 32 inches, then 72 inches. Each mile after that is inversely proportional to the square of the mile. That's the way that it works. Obviously in these diagrams that I'm going to show, the curvature is exaggerated. It's just to prove a point, basically to show you something that you can visualize. If the ball Earth, if it really represented 3 miles over this distance, then we would have a much smaller Earth. So remember, when I show these pictures, it's just to illustrate a point. This is how the curvature that we're told exists measures. According to, you can have a look at this information on the internet, okay, over a mile, it's 8 inches and 32 inches. Let me just check that. Yeah, 32 inches, I've written it wrong in here. Okay, where it increases inversely proportional to the square of the mile. When we get to 20 miles, 266 feet of curvature. We've got here all the way up to 120 miles, which should be sufficient for what I'm going to show you tonight. So there was a series of experiments done by someone called Samuel Burley Rowbotham in the 1800s, and they were done in England at a place called the Bedford Canal. They're known as the Bedford level experiments. So Samuel Burley Rowbotham said, what we'll do is we'll have somebody who will row down the canal with a boat, and they'll have a flag on the boat. And when they get to 6 miles, okay, they should be over the curvature. We shouldn't be able to see them anymore. As you can see from this, at 6 miles, they should be 24 feet below the horizon. Okay, that's how it should work. So what we would expect on a curve is what you see in the top diagram, that they would be out of sight. What was actually observed though, is as he rowed away, everything remained perfectly visible. There was no change at all in the level. He did another series of experiments along the same canal. He put equidistant flags that were 5 foot high. Okay, the top of the flag is 5 foot high. He put a flag at the end that was 8 foot high, the flagpole. The flag itself measured 3 foot, so the bottom of that flag would be level with the top of the other flags on a flat plane. That's exactly what he observed. Obviously, on a curved earth, we would expect a less extreme version of this. Okay, but at 6 miles again, we see that it would be 24 feet out of view. So that's what we're told we should expect. With all of these things that I'm going to show you tonight, we have all been told something that is true. However, people just accept these things as true simply because they've been told that they are true. And they've been told by people who have accepted that they're true without looking at these things themselves. We accept that the curvature of the earth is the reason that ships disappear at a certain distance. We'll have a look at that. But how many of you here have been out to test whether or not the ships actually go over the curvature of the earth? Is it not just something that you've repeated, that is oft repeated by everyone in society and has become commonly known? Okay. This is a picture of Chicago skyline. This picture has become somewhat famous now. This picture was taken from 60 miles away. Okay. If this was 60 miles away, we can see that it should be 2,400 feet below the horizon. So you should not be able to observe Chicago skyline from where this photograph was taken 60 miles away on the other side of Lake Michigan. This is, again, exaggerated curvature, but how it should work. If the person taking the photograph was 6 foot tall, then compensate for that, it should be 2,166 feet below the horizon. But as we saw from the picture, you can see all of the buildings, and there is no difference whatsoever. And this is commonly observed objects, large objects at a distance. Just to show you the curvature calculator, this is used by shipping websites so that they can see when a ship would disappear from view. You can see on there the top field is eye height, so that's 6 foot eye height, target distance 60 miles away, okay, and it says that the target should be hidden by 2,166 feet. All of these things are verifiable. Just go home, check them out, go on the internet, don't believe anything I'm saying. I don't want to be another person that comes along and tells you something that you just accept as being true without testing out. The whole purpose of what I'm saying is to get you to question things. So you get what you're saying. If there were curvature there, then these things would be, for a start, they would be pointing away from us because they would be on the curvature of the earth. They would be further away. And they shouldn't be visible at all. Yet they are absolutely visible, you know, from base to tip. So there's no curvature there. If there were curvature, they would be hidden. Okay, these things are things that we can test. The things that we can perceive with our own eyes. Somebody comes along and tells us something different to what we can perceive with our eyes, then we really need a high standard of proof to believe it. Ironically, the situation is that we need a high standard of proof to believe what our eyes tell us. This is the situation that we find ourselves in. This is the explanation for the Bedford level experiments that you see on the Wikipedia page for the Bedford level experiments. It says atmospheric refraction can produce the results noted by Robotham and Blount because the density of air in the Earth's atmosphere decreases with height above the Earth's surface. All light rays travelling nearly horizontally bend downward, assuming a curve or change in air temperature along the line of sight. This phenomenon is routinely allowed for in levelling and celestial navigation. If the measurement is close enough to the surface, light rays can curve downward at a rate equal to the mean curvature of the Earth's surface. In this case, the two effects of assumed curvature and refraction could cancel each other out, and the Earth will appear flat in optical experiments. Okay, so the effect that they're talking about is what causes this. Okay, when there's a change in the density that the light is travelling through, it will appear to bend. However, the idea that this is always exactly perfect with the curvature of the Earth to make the Earth appear flat is incredulous to me. Okay, we know that the weather, for a start, changes the density of the air. It's not something that's fixed, so we can't say that it's a fixed effect that happens every time. This is what Wikipedia says about it. If you read the other Wikipedia pages about refraction, they'll tell you something different about refraction, but on this particular page about the Bedford level experiments, this is the explanation that they give. Something that can't be explained by refraction, okay, let's just say, okay, refraction explains things at a distance. Let's just give them that. If you look at something that is horizontal, okay, refraction isn't affecting that at all. Okay, the light's not coming towards your eyes around the curvature, which is corrected for with refraction. Okay, so if you look at the horizon and you can see 20 to 30 miles on the horizon, okay, what you would expect to see is, let's take 20 miles, you'd expect to see 266 feet of curvature. So you would expect in the middle of the horizon, okay, would be the center of the curve, and then at either end it would bow down slightly. Okay, so we could do an experiment. If you take a ship and sail it across the horizon to the other side, what you would expect to see is something like a less exaggerated version of this. However, if we look at the horizon, there is no curvature whatsoever. Okay, if we look, you can see from Portsmouth, you can see the entire coastline of the Isle of Wight without any curvature at all. If we use one of these pieces of equipment, which is called a theodolite, okay, you look through the lens of it, you can check to see whether there's any curvature, any curvature whatsoever. Okay, are we on a giant ball with less curvature? Well, we're on a flat plane because we see no curvature whatsoever, and we can measure now with such precise increments, and yet no curvature is measured. Again, you would expect to see something like a less exaggerated version of this. Okay, an island would appear to bow down at the sides. We do not observe that anywhere in the world. If you go here, which is a place on the Wirral where I'm from, this is Bidston Hill, and from here you can observe the Isle of Man. You can observe the coastline of the Isle of Man. Okay, 22 miles along, and there's no curvature. From the actual Isle of Man itself, this is Douglas Harbour, you can see all of the coastline of North Wales. Okay, not a single inch of curvature, no curvature whatsoever. So from the experiments that we can do, we can see that there's no curvature on the Earth. Again, if someone comes and tells you that there is curvature on the Earth, you want to see experimental data that says that there's a curvature, and not just a fancy story that someone comes up with. If someone wants you to disbelieve your eyes, then that's going to take a large degree of proof. This is the Lake Pontchartrain causeway in LA. From one end of it to the other is 23.87 miles. That should be obscured by 380 feet of curvature. There's the calculation, 379.9 feet of missing curvature. If you look from one end, you can see the base of the objects at the other. Now this is something that comes up. People will question, okay, so if there's no curvature of the Earth, where does the sun in the sky go? Okay, if the sun doesn't go down behind the curvature of the Earth, what happens to the sun? This is a perfectly reasonable question. It's a question that I had. If you look at this video here, look at the trajectory of the sun across the sky. Is this due to us being on a ball that is spinning, making the sun appear as if it's travelling across the sky? Or is the sun actually travelling across the sky, getting larger as it gets closer to us? As it gets overhead, it would appear higher because of perspective. As it gets further away, it would reach the vanishing point at which we would no longer be able to see it. If the light that it's casting obviously only travels over a certain amount of distance, then we will only be able to see the light for so long. See what you see with your own eyes, okay? See the sun in the sky traveling away from us, disappearing because of perspective, because of this very thing, okay? We see lines of convergence with perspective. The sun is simply traveling towards a line of convergence. This is the way that it appears to us. This is why the sun will appear higher in the sky and then will appear to disappear when it gets so far away. It's not going behind the curvature though, it is simply going past the vanishing point, okay? Much like you can see in this picture. Okay, look at the lights. The lights underneath them, they only shine in a certain area, they only shine the light there. Works the same way with the sun, and you can see it getting smaller into the distance. Just like the sun does in this video. Now the sun is on a slightly curved arc as well because of the way that it travels, but you can clearly see the sun is just moving into the vanishing point, okay? Exactly the same as this. Have a look at it. See what you think is happening. Is the sun coming towards you? Getting to above you? And then travelling away from you towards the vanishing point? What do you think's happening? Can you see where the sun is in the sky? It's right there. Not some weird optical illusion. We don't necessarily perceive this in everyday life because the sun is moving incredibly slowly to our perception. It's only when we look at videos like this. Okay, in art, people are taught to draw by these lines of perspective. Okay, and it works exactly the same way. Again, have a look. Do you think this is because we're on a globe that's spinning round, that's making the sun appear like that? Or is the sun moving away into the vanishing point? Okay. Believe what you see with your own eyes, not some narrative that someone has put over the top of it.